Check this out. And my buddy Brian actually had this black walnut tree dropping branches on his house, so he cut it down and he gave a majority of the lumber to his neighbor for firewood, but he gave me this one little piece to plane down with my chainsaw. So yeah, after like a year of waiting, it's finally dried up and is ready to plane. So check it out, guys. I'm gonna show you what's going on in this video. And it's been a little over a year, and when I tested the moisture on the boards, they were all at like 9 and 8% humidity, so, or not humidity, but moisture content. Here's me just cutting those edges off them. My saw was binding up on that one because it was a very unevenly cut slab. Kind of just had to take 2 passes at it and just go in with the handsaw at the end anyway. And here I'm just using a level as a guide to rip a nice straight cut across this slab. I probably should have clamped it down, but everything worked out, so. And then I planed these back edges straight so I could cross cut it on the table saw. These are gonna be drawer fronts on a floating drawer, so I go and cut them down to 16 inches. I forgot to film cutting the other one, but I got super lucky because I just cut it 90 degrees and it ended up being exactly 16 inches. And then here I'm putting a half-inch round with the router table on the outside of each drawer front because they're gonna meet in the middle. So the outsides are gonna be rounded, the middle's gonna be nice and flat. So I made this little mistake here, but hoping I can just make it look like a happy accident. And sanding on this one was not super time consuming, but you could see it had quite a bit of tear out from the planer since the grain is just so irregular on this piece of wood. But went from 120 to 180 to 220 and got them really nice and smooth, so all you could see is the grain. And I am by no means an epoxy expert. You know, I just follow the directions on whatever one I'm using. And, you know, I get really lucky a majority of the time. I have had some pretty bad, like, you know, issues where I've mismixed the epoxy and the hardener. and that's like probably the easiest mistake to make. Um, but for the most part, just getting it spread over the whole surface, and then when you're doing something like this where you're doing both sides, sanding everything, like sanding all the drips is really important, and doing 2 coats, because this epoxy actually, in the first coat, the air in the wood will get released into the epoxy, and you could pop those bubbles with a torch, but they're gonna come back as as the epoxy's curing. So you do the first coat of epoxy, and then you have to come back and sand that first coat. So you might as well not do it like super thick, and just do kind of a little bit thinner of a first coat, and then you come back and do what's called a flood coat, where after you've sanded down your first pour, you do a big flooding amount over the top of that. And I should have mixed up a little bit more for my flood coat, because mine really wasn't. I didn't have enough for these 2 slabs, but I was really close and had enough to spread it around and make it work. But if I just had like a half ounce, maybe an ounce more, it probably would have been perfect. But I mean, they turned out looking really good. But do your research and make sure you calculate the amount of epoxy you're going to need for your projects if you're pouring epoxy. And please wear a mask or have really good ventilation if you're going to pour epoxy too. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you guys. If you watched all the way through, feel free to like, subscribe, comment. I'll answer any questions the best I can. Thank you guys. Have a great day.